Hey everyone, and welcome to the Data Platform Quiz. So excited to have you all here today and looking forward to a kick-ass quiz day today. Today we have a very special guest and a very special topic, so I'm very much looking forward to showing you that. But to begin with, we are going to do the introduction for anyone who are new to the whole concept of this Data Platform Quiz. So the topic today will be data science in Microsoft Fabric. And for you to be able to participate, you need to do the following steps. You need to open Kahoot. So you either do this by downloading the mobile app on your phone. It shouldn't take much more than half a minute, and you will have plenty of time to do so. And if you're not wanting to use your mobile phone, or you just want to do the browser-based, you can also go to kahoot.it, and everything will be there and ready for you. Then you need to enter the game pin, which will be provided later in the show in a few minutes. And once you do that, you will have to add your email and nickname. I'm not using this email for spamming you or for marketing or anything. I just needed to be able to contact the winner of the quiz. And speaking of the winner of the quiz, it is just basically the one who scores the most points of the quiz. Other than that, the Kahoot quiz is very easy to follow and should feel familiar also to anyone who's doing this for the first time. I want to add that we're quizzing in real time, so if you are watching this video after the fact, you won't be able to participate, but it should be entertaining and interesting nonetheless. The faster you answer, the more points you get in the quiz questions. So there are standard questions where you just need to click the right answers quick and you get more points. If you answer wrong, you get no points. There are also a different type of questions called multi-answer, where you can select more than one correct answer. For those kind of questions, you need to click the submit button to also be able to get the points. So the faster you click the right answers and click submit, the more points you get. The same principle apply. If you get just even one of them wrong, you get 0 points for that question. So you can play it safe and only guess for the ones you're sure about, or you can take a risk and try to answer more and risk losing all the points. Cool. So there's a prize today. Similar as always, we have a $100 Lego gift certificate waiting and ready for the winner of the quiz. You can use it to buy a plant or a car or a portrait or a painting or a castle or whatever you feel like. Just go to the Lego online store and use the gift certificate afterwards. Yeah. Great, but let's move on with the quiz. So today we have a special guest, so I am welcoming here Nellie Gustafsson, who is a program manager, lead on the data science experience in Fabric. But welcome here, Nellie. Maybe you can tell a little bit more about yourself so I don't get any details wrong here.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. And hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Nellie Gustafsson. I lead the product management team that's working on the data science experiences that you see coming up as part of Synapse in Microsoft Fabric.
Nice. Good to have you. And thank you for preparing a bunch of awesome questions. So I've of course cheated a bit, went to the questions, everything seemed good. And I think we are in for a blast today. Anything you want to add to whoever is sitting out there about what they can look forward to?
No, I mean, I hope that the quiz today is going to teach everyone more and raise the awareness about data science in Microsoft Fabric. It is a new workload, obviously, as well as a lot of our other new capabilities coming from the Synapse side. But this is actually, I would say, brand new because in Synapse, we had some machine learning capabilities, but we actually went all in Fabric and provided you these native capabilities. And it's a start, right? We were going to do a lot more, but it's a very exciting start.
Nice. I can't wait to get started, but I also can't wait to actually play around with some of these features in Fabric. So for anyone out there who doesn't know how they get started, what would be your advice, and how can they try out these new things if they don't have them today?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that we could, one way to get started, obviously, is to sign up for a trial for Microsoft Fabric, and that's really the best way to get started. And once you do that, it's very intuitive and it's quite simple. So if you're used to using some of our experiences, let's say in Azure services, right? The sign up and all of this process is very different. So even I'm sometimes blown away by how easy it is to get started with experiences in this new platform. And I'm sure people have used Power BI for a long time. You're used to that. But sign up for a trial, switch to the data science homepage and click on the samples. It's like 3 clicks, and then start off with some of these samples. We also have docs and other things. And I'll try to go into the chats and the comments and post some links afterwards.
Cool. Yeah, easy as that. So I just posted the link to the trial if you're curious about doing that. And for anyone here, we actually tried to set it up this time, so we should be able to see your questions and engage with them in real time. Crossing fingers that it's working. At least I see a bunch of comments already, especially by Donald as usual. So hi, Donald. But let's get started with the quiz. So anyone who already downloaded the app or signed up should now be able to enter this game pin on their mobile app or through the kahoot.it webpage. And if you're joining in late, don't hold back. I mean, all you need to do at this point is we haven't started the actual quiz yet. All you need to do is to go to kahoot.it or download the Kahoot app on your phone, and you should be able to enter the details and actually enter the pool of players here. We're already seeing 3 players jumping in here. There are some familiar names. I don't think I told you about this, Nellie, but there are always the same bunch of people that will, I mean, diehard fans that will be here, even wake up in the morning to make sure they attend. So that's always nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So 8 so far. I see around a few more peoples on the video feed, so I will slowly and easily give people a chance to still sign in. Donald saying here, there, everywhere. Great. So it takes a bit longer because of having to enter the email.
How many people usually sign up?
Between 20 and 25 is the norm. But let's see today. It could surprise.
Yeah. Come on, people. Like it's not that hard of questions, I think.
No, I don't think so either. They're pretty good. Someone is saying we have 12 people in the game. He's not going to be top 10 then. It's slowing down. Okay, so if you haven't signed in yet, you are still able to join even though we start the quiz. So don't be worried if we are starting and you still haven't entered the last details. The first question will be a no point question, just to give you sort of a warm up. So yeah, if at this point you didn't join yet, just go in there and join the game, and we will get started. Donald writing about sound problems. Donald, we have sound problems this time. Tell us, because we actually.
Yeah, I'm hearing an echo when I speak.
Okay, this is a fix. This is something we can fix. Oi. So Nellie, if you could try say something in just a bit, we should be able to check if the echo is still a problem.
Okay. Can I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm not hearing an echo. So I hope the audience is also
I think
noticing an improvement.
Great improvement, and we will get started. So, data platform quiz. The first question is a warm-up question, no points. And the question is, what is the name of Microsoft's new unified SaaS end-to-end analytics platform? Is it Microsoft Power Lake? Is it Microsoft Fabric? Is it Microsoft Orange, or is it Microsoft Mesh? I'm very curious if anyone will get this one wrong.
Yeah,
So while we wait for the answers, there are oh, great. Everyone got this right. I didn't expect anything either. So good news. People have not been living under a rock for the past 2 weeks, which is a good sign.
amazing. Okay, so everyone knows about Fabric. That's awesome.
Everyone knows about Fabric. Oh, shoot. Except me, it seems. Sorry, guys. wrong correct answer. The answer is, of course, Microsoft Fabric. Doesn't matter, no points. So, first question for the day. Fabric offers native data science capabilities. Is that true or false?
This is also pretty easy, just a warm-up question, right?
Yeah. Which is kind of leading. So if you didn't know now, it's an easy yes. Great. It does really. I mean, if it didn't do that, we wouldn't have this quiz today.
Exactly.
Basically. Cool. So I want to say later on in the quiz, we're actually introducing a new kind of question, which is a typing question. So at some point, some of you who are used to play these quiz may have a surprise. You may need to actually use your keyboard, but that is not now, because we're moving on to see the points. Who was fastest here? Amadeo is taking the lead. Great. And we can move on to question number 3. So what item can data scientists use in Fabric to author Python code? Can they use SQL scripts, notebooks, DAX, or libraries?
Exactly. And focus on the Python code authoring here specifically. And let me also clarify the item. Like an item is basically a thing, an artifact that you can create and open and, set permissions on, etc.
Yeah. And it is notebooks.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do you want to add a word of why
Yeah.
someone who hasn't heard about notebooks or haven't worked with them, why notebooks is a smart thing for a modern data platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in data science, notebooks are quite common when you're starting to do your development and data exploration and so forth. They just make it really easy for you to explore, but also tell a story as you're doing it. So in a way, a notebook is not just for code authoring and coding and solving a problem. It's also for sharing with others. You can, for example, have code cells with visualizations. You can add markdown comments and these things. So it's just a very convenient tool. But we also in Fabric support using the notebooks to operationalize your code. You may need to clean it up, of course, a bit. There's a difference between an experimental notebook and one that you actually productionalize. But the idea of it is the same, that you can actually schedule the notebook on its own, which is actually a new functionality that I love a lot because it's much more lightweight in the way that you can schedule it. Like I can just create a notebook, it does something and read some data from the lakehouse. And I can just schedule it to run, twice per day or whatever I want. But you can also use notebooks and operationalize them as part of your pipelines and so forth. So there's various ways you can operationalize the code in the notebook, and notebooks can invoke each other, and you can invoke scripts from your notebooks and other libraries. So there's a lot you can do from notebooks. There's even parameterization of notebooks, I believe we're introducing, so that if you're invoking a notebook, you can invoke it with certain parameters. So tons you can do with notebooks.
That's really cool. That really gives a new dimension of flexibility. So what I'm also hearing you say, and please correct me if this is a wrong explanation. So for someone who has never touched Python or never touch coding and maybe coming from Power BI, could you say that notebooks is kind of what if we could put our code into a Word document but still run it? I mean, combining that code with text and storytelling and just be able to send these artifacts to each other, but being able to run that code inside that document shape.
Exactly. And the nice thing about the notebook experience in Fabric, which we've spent a lot of time on, just polishing, and we're continuing to do that, is that when you're working with a notebook, you always work with your data. So you can attach a lakehouse, for example, to the notebook that you're working with. And if you're sharing the notebook and the user you're sharing it with also has access to that lakehouse, and that lakehouse is attached, you can basically, exactly as you said, Matthias, you basically just share it, and then when I open it, that lakehouse is going to be attached too when I open it. So and there's also code live co-authoring, so you could actually live co-author one notebook across different people. You can see where the other person's cursor is. So we added a lot of these collaboration features as well.
That's really cool. Really cool and really nice to see. Like you said, suddenly we have the best of both worlds. In a sense, we can we can run the notebook similar to what we're used to with Power BI datasets, but we can also run it with pipelines and actually do pretty complex orchestration of our task.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Let's move on to the next question, because we still have a few more to go. So Amadeo is keeping the lead, but Michael S is catching up. So Richie is writing here in the chat that the video is maybe behind the quiz. It should not be a big problem. It's something we can look into for the next time. But please just trust your phone. If it pops up with a quiz question, follow that. I mean, the quicker you can answer, the better. So let's move on to the next question, number 4. It's a multi-select question. You can select more than one right answer. What are the languages supported in Fabric notebooks? Is it PySpark, Scala, Spark SQL, or Spark or R? And how many of them are usable inside of Fabric notebooks?
Exactly. Emphasis on the multi-select there. This one.
Yes. Yeah, we don't only have one. I think we can spoil that answer. We don't only have one language. So actually all of them. And I mean, we only had 4 options. Are there even more than that, or is that the range of languages?
No, so these are the current options.
Nice.
So, yeah, and I think one of the things when we talk a lot about like Python and using Python is so common for data science, but also using R. The fact that you can, even when you see Spark R, I think we even say in parentheses, we say R, or we say Python in parentheses for PySpark, basically means that you also have a Python environment as part of that. So, for example, when we have these starter pools and you just open up a notebook, it's automatically connected to the backend compute that you don't even have to provision. And that compute basically comes with a Python environment or an R environment, even for Spark R.
Nice.
And those would be the 2 common ones, I would say, for data science. Although data scientists also use SQL and Spark SQL as well, of course, I would say Python is probably the most common for data science.
So do we want to, with all this flexibility, do we want the organizations out there to choose the language that they know the best and then go all in on that? Or is this an offering of flexibility where you can choose the language for the right task for your individual notebooks, or even individual cells in the notebooks? How should we approach this?
Yeah, so there is some flexibility in terms of the cell. I believe that when you're using PySpark, for example, you can do percent SQL or something like that, and you can basically do the magics to switch. But I'm honestly not 100% sure we have that for across all of them.
Okay.
But I would say, like, first and foremost, it's a matter of preference and the task, the job to be done, right? So, for example, we have a lot of Spark developers who are using Scala to build out, data transformations. That is common. So it's a little bit of preference, but maybe some operations are better done in a specific language. So you use that, but there is a way specifically between PySpark and Spark SQL to mix them. And we also actually have gotten questions on social media recently and on our ideas website, where you can actually post ideas for features. for Fabric ideas. There we actually got something around being able to share variables across these, right? So let's say you started off with something and being able to switch over and then share that variable from R to Python and so forth, which is super interesting and something I know we have on the roadmap. So
really cool.
It's going to be a little bit more integrated across them.
Yeah, I mean, I felt it firsthand. I mean, there are certain Python scripts that would have taken 200, 300 lines of SQL code to make into a query because it should never have been a query to begin with. And the other way around, where it's just some things are just so much simpler and more elegant and more easy in Python. But then hardcore complex queries can be so much easier in SQL. So it's really nice to be able to mix and match them for the right purpose.
Definitely.
Cool. So let's see how many was greedy here and got all the points. At least Chandan was able to utilize this question to take the lead. So good job there. Very nice. And with that, we're moving on to question number 5. So what is MLflow? Is it a programming language for machine learning? Is it a cloud-based machine learning platform? Is it a machine learning algorithm? Or is it an open source framework for managing the machine learning lifecycle? This is a tough one if you don't already know. I mean, it's going to be hard to guess.
Yeah, this one is it's actually surprising that even a lot of data science practitioners are not super familiar with MLflow. So yeah, this one is tricky.
But there was the green option. It was an open source framework for managing the machine learning cycle.
Yes.
To someone who's not a data scientist, what does that mean? I mean, yeah.
That's a great question because it actually takes some time to wrap your head around what is MLflow really. In many ways, what MLflow does is that it's an open source framework, like a library, an open source that provides some structure in the way that you work with machine learning life cycles. And it started off purely from like model and experiment tracking, where you're basically saying that, hey, I want to try out different combinations of parameters and algorithms just because when I'm solving a problem, I oftentimes need to iterate and try out different things. And it's hard to keep everything in your head, right? Or just use an Excel sheet and just take notes, which for a long time, that was the case. Like we actually had data scientists using Excel and just kind of adding lines and just, okay, this combination. What MLflow does is that it actually helps you to capture all of these different parameters and metrics automatically. And then you get an interface and a UI to be able to go and track them. So that's the model and experiment tracking part that we are supporting in Fabric right now. So that's part of the public preview.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, but MLflow does a lot more too for deployment and so forth. That's why it's expanded into the ML lifecycle. So you can do a lot more with MLflow today than you could 4 years ago.
Nice. So is this for data scientists purely, or should someone who is working with only Power BI today, should they take interest in this as a feature in the going forward, or should they say, well, someone else can learn this and give me some data that are being enhanced with ML? Is it a workflow that is close to the workflow of Power BI, or what?
Well, maybe this one is more closely related to the actual, specifically the support that we have from models and experiments. That's probably much closer to the inner loop of machine learning, where you're basically developing an ML model. However, we have added features like auto logging. So if you, let's say, see a sample, a data science sample somewhere, or just take a code that your colleague who's a data scientist wrote, and that's training an ML model on the data in a lakehouse, for example, or files that you've added there, and then we actually take care of the logging for you. So this is automatically on in Fabric. You can turn it off too per notebook, I believe, or in the workspace settings, actually. So this is a brand new feature that we added. So
cool.
I think, I don't know if I lost connectivity here or something.
Oh, we hear you. Everything seems good on this end.
Okay, maybe it's just Windows because I got logged out, but okay.
Right.
This was
but while you handle that, we'll just move on to the next question.
Yeah, let's.
So we're moving on to question number 6. So what is an MLflow experiment? Is it an experiment that is used to create a model? Is it a model that is used to track and manage machine learning experience? Or is it an experiment used to track and manage machine learning experiment runs? Or is it a model used to create a new experiment? So what is MLflow experiment? So MLflow experiment is also what we see as the artifact inside of Fabric Data Science, the experience. So
Yes.
this is the experiment artifact we're talking about here.
Exactly. And I mean, this was actually a tough one because they all kind of it was like reading the text and alternatives here. Yes, but the experiment is the main. So when you're starting to develop an ML model, even if you have like auto logging on, the first thing that happens is that we create an experiment. And experiments have it's like a parent object and it has children and they can be runs. So we call them experiment runs. And this comes from the ML flow concept, but also if you use, other model registries like Azure Machine Learnings, which is MLflow compatible, which by the way is powering the Fabric models and experiments. It is Azure Machine Learning's model registry. The concept has been there for a long time that you have runs, and every experimentation iteration is a run, and they can also have child runs, and there's a hierarchy of runs. But for now in our UI we support one level of runs.
Cool. Let's see, 9 people were able to get this question answered correctly, and it really changed the whole thing here.
Wow.
Nicholas taking the lead with Richie, I think. Hi, Richie, on second, and Michael S on third. So I think all of these are new to the leaderboard. So good job, guys.
Yeah, great job. This is like every question, this changes, right? Like this.
Yeah, I think it shows something about how new this really is to the crowd. But let's see if the next question will also change things up. So question number 7 is, what is then an MLflow model? So that's the other artifact in Fabric Data Science. Is it a machine learning model that has been trained and tested? Is it a type of classification model? Is it a machine learning model that has been deployed? Or is it a machine learning model that has been packaged in the MLflow format?
Yeah, let's
11 people were able to get this right. I'm curious because I saw in the chat someone say, if you don't know, just pick the longest answer. And so I don't know if everybody just followed that advice or they actually knew the answer here.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice, honestly. Yeah, so similarly, like, we had experiments. An ML model is the other type of object for model and experiment tracking. So I would say once you have done experiments and let's say you have 10 runs, it's very likely that not all of them is like super great, right? So you're going to pick the winner, and the winner, like the best model, the one that you thought, hey, this is solving my problem the best, that's the one you're going to create a model out of. And when you do that, you get a model object that is the parent, like essentially an overarching container for it. And then you get a model version, which is the actual model. So the model technically already exists in the run. It's just that it's not formally a model until you create a model out of it, which is then becomes a version. So, but you can do this from the UI. So if you go into an experiment UI, create one of the samples, you're going to get an experiment, go into the experiment, go into one of your runs, and then say that you want to save that model, save as model. And that's when you can actually create a model right from the UI. And model is the thing that you operationalize. So that's the artifact that you would then take to production.
Cool. So it's also easier for me to use the model in the model artifact than if it was only in the experiment, if I wanted to use it in a notebook or on some of my data?
Yes, absolutely. So you can reference models. For example, we introduce our own scalable predict function. So that's I would say probably one of the easiest way to explain this is that the way that we think about it is that, okay, I want to predict the model. Now I want to reference that model that's sitting in my workspace. And then you can reference it basically by its name or by the artifact name. So that's essentially how it goes. So before then, of course, you can still score a model and predict without it being an object, like an artifact, but it just makes it makes it more, I would say, tracked in the sense that you get the full lineage of it too. So you can actually see that from this notebook, this experiment was created and then this model was created. So you want this in an organization, right? You want that
Yeah.
governance on these things, and that's ultimately what ML flow model and experiment tracking gives you. It gives you that enterprise grade ML governance. So you can have all these things tracked. You know exactly which model fed into what predictions that were read into what report. So that when something happens and you need to understand, hey, this model is drifting, it's coming
You can
up
go
with
back and check.
predictions that are not great anymore, then you know which reports are impacted. So these things are important. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Good to know. So it changed a bit, and it seemed like on the chat that people were following this strategy. So let's see if it will continue to be a thing.
Yeah.
And we move on to question number 8. This is an open-ended question, so you will not get scored points here. So don't be afraid of answering this wrong. And there's a bit more time, but we're just asking you here curiously, how do you see direct lake mode? This is a Power BI feature helping us with machine learning scenarios. I think this was a really cool question that you brought to the quiz, Nellie. And
Yeah, I'd really curious to see the answers here.
it's not a point scoring question, so I think we can explain what is direct lake if someone doesn't already know. Do you want to, or should I?
I can take a stab and maybe you can polish it, right? So direct lake mode is a new way of reading data uh,
Mhm.
uh, from Power BI that basically directly accesses files over the lake. That's my understanding. I have to admit I'm not an expert on the other modes that exist. I think there's a import mode and a query mode or direct query mode, right?
Exactly,
Uh,
yeah.
but to my understanding, and when I've tried Direct Lake, it's blazingly fast. And the convenient thing from my perspective, from the data science perspective, is that I can just write files into the lake, and then suddenly they show up in a Power BI data set, and now Power BI can access them. That's how, from my perspective, I see. But please do explain your view on this.
Yeah, cool. No, I think you got it perfectly right. I think the biggest advantage here is that beforehand you may see a data scientist wanting to send CSV files, or a data analyst sending CSV files with data, and please do something with this data. The data science would have to then convert it to the file format they have to use, and then write that back, send it to the Power BI person, and they would have to again find a way to import it into their whole data set. But today, the Power BI analyst or the data analyst just goes, "Hey, colleague, can you please use some machine learning magic on my data set here?" And it's already in the one lake, so they can just do that, write the result back into the data, and it will be immediately available in the data set. Not without having to refresh, not without having to wait for a long time or having to import some files or something. It will just be there the moment it's written to the data. I think that's the big advantage here. But let's see
Yeah.
what people are saying.
Yeah, let's see.
Someone is saying no need to import data. Yeah, same point. Real
Yeah.
time access to the data. Yeah, make data from other lakes like S3 available. Probably
Yeah.
not a machine learning scenario, but yeah, it may be possible with shortcuts, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it would work today.
So I
Direct
think
link
I
on
think
a shortcut.
you could probably, yes, you could do that with the shortcuts. If you shortcut to S3, but then you read the data in Fabric and write it back. I think that's what would have to write it back with V order
Oh yeah.
into these Parquet files. Then Power BI suddenly like, oh, I can see the files. Yeah. So,
Um, yeah, I think people are hitting
yeah,
the
I love
exact
this.
same points here. It's about quick handoff of the results of the machine learning.
Definitely. And I think one key thing here too is to add that like and I met with some customers at Build, and I think we had an MVP summit, and this I would love to kind of see, maybe people can put in the chat if they agree with this or not. But imagine you're also in the development phase of a project, and what we know for sure is that data scientists typically in organizations collaborate with analysts and business stakeholders, and that's kind of the people who have the domain expertise of what's the problem we're going to solve, but maybe not the ML expertise, right? So there's a lot of collaboration here. So when data science teams come in, or a data scientist, imagine now that with Direct Lake, you could also iterate quicker, right? So let's say I'm just doing that development. I'm like, hey, do you want to take a look at these intermediate results. Like I put something, does this make sense? And have that conversation over something that you can immediately load into a report and start looking into and analyze. So you may be able to do that more independently than looping in someone that can, an expert that can help you import the data first and then take a look at it. So maybe a few steps that you can skip just as part of this. But of course, when you productionalize it, you definitely want your BI engineers and other folks involved.
Absolutely. So with that said, let's move on to question number 9. No change for leaderboards because we didn't give any points for this question. So an experiment contains different experiment versions, true or false?
Exactly. And emphasis on the versions there, like pretty much like do we refer to things that are under an experiment as versions?
And the answer is false. Only one people got this right. Some people are saying they did a coin flip here. Maybe someone were lucky here. But I think the point here, I think you said it earlier. Experiments have different runs.
Yes.
But
it was a bit tricky, yeah. So exactly, you associate runs with experiments and versions with models.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a little bit also about the semantics of what we call things.
It is tricky.
Cool. And Michael S was able to use this to climb to placement number 2. And we're moving on to question number 10. So this is a type answer where you will actually get points if you get it right. And you need to say what is the name of the notebook-based tool that helps prepare and clean data and generate Python code in
Fabric.
Microsoft Fabric.
Yeah, so and this one, I think in this one you would have to have followed announcements, maybe read some blogs. So I don't know if this was a fair question to add. Maybe this is probably the most difficult one.
I mean, the tool is there.
The tool is there, so you can actually go into if you have a notebook open, quickly go into data, and then you'll see the name of the tool where you can open your data frame in this tool. Yeah, okay, we have some people that actually got it right. And I think someone had a typo though. So that was a bit unfair.
Oh no.
Because someone had the Wrangler wrong.
Sorry to whoever that was.
Can we still give them a point, or is that just...
No, we're not able to see who it were, and we're not able to actually correct the points. So sorry, but spelling errors apparently count.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
But Data Wrangler is correct. So Data Wrangler is a tool that currently supports Pandas data frame. So you would actually have to have a Pandas data frame, but it's easy to convert if you have a Spark data frame, you can convert it to Pandas and vice versa. And we are adding Spark support for it too. And Data Wrangler is a really nice tool because then you can open up the data frame in a grid view. And you're going to see a blog post around this in a couple of weeks, but we're just going to focus on Data Wrangler. But the nice thing about Data Wrangler is that you can do this and then it generates code for you. So it generates Python code that you then add back to your code cells. So it is very much a code-centric tool. It's just that it helps you apply a lot of data cleansing, data prep operations. So if you're new to Python and you're not super familiar with coding and so forth, Data Wrangler can actually be a great tool to help you along. And the best part is, I think, is that Data Wrangler is also available in VS Code. So, and we have a VS Code integration as well. So if you're using Data Wrangler in Fabric in the UI, you can still continue to use Data Wrangler in the same tool, basically, slightly different potentially where you launch it, but you can use it still from VS Code. So
but could we also use it to learn Python? I mean, make some transformations and then get the actual code and look like, okay, so this is how it looks in code, and kind of go from there.
Definitely, and it's human readable code too. It is basically
it's not what Power BI produces when it shows the SQL it does behind the scene. It's actually human readable.
Yeah, that's good to add, because a lot of these code generation tools, they produce code and you're like, wait a minute. Like even if but yeah, this is human readable Pandas code that you're going to see there. And we're adding Spark data frame support for it as well, so that even if you have a Spark data frame, you can still open it up and all of those things.
Cool. Pretty neat. I mean, I don't think we were able to write Python with UI yet within the Synapse Power BI platform. So it's a pretty cool feature.
Yes, this one creates, I mean, a lot of people are excited about this, especially I would say whenever we present to folks that are mostly familiar with Power BI and using these tools, I do sense a big interest in wanting to learn more Python. And I would say if you want to get into learning more about data science and ML, Python is probably, it is the language that you should get more familiar with for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. But 3 people were actually able to answer this
Wow.
correctly, and that may change. Well, Richie used this, took a second place, and actually entered the fray fighting for that first place. And I think we have only 1 or 2 questions left, so things are tightening in. But there seems to be at least 3 or 4 people who are at least 5 who has a chance, and at least 3 of them has a pretty certain chance. I mean, a good shot. So let's move on to question number 11, the second last, which is also a multi-select. So you can get more points here as well. What is Synapse ML? Is it a new service in Azure? Is it an OSS Spark library?
Yeah, open source. Yeah.
Oh, what is OSS?
Open source. Yeah.
Oh, open source Spark library. Is it a set of scalable tools for distributed machine learning on Spark? Or is it formerly known as MML for Spark? And
Exactly. So
it's
there's
more,
select here.
yeah, more of these,
Multiple
more than one
answers
could be.
are, yeah.
Yes.
And this is also very, very, very tricky,
3
potentially.
of them were correct. It is not a new service in Azure.
Exactly. So yeah, so so Synapse ML is a Spark library. It is open source. And this was, I'm sorry guys, I'm seeing a bunch of comments. This was really difficult potentially. It is an open source Spark library. It is basically a scalable set of tools for ML on Spark, and we renamed it. It was Microsoft Machine Learning for Spark. So this was a very niche question potentially. Yeah, this one was
Yeah.
difficult to guess for sure.
So what do we use it for? One thing is what it is, but what do we use
Oh,
Synapse
great
ML for,
question.
and where do we use it?
So you can use Synapse ML actually on any Spark you have. You don't have to use it necessarily. You can use it in Azure Synapse. You can use it in Microsoft Fabric. You can use it on Databricks. But there are some proprietary parts of it that only work in Fabric. And Synapse ML does a lot of things across the ML lifecycle. So it can help you to do data transformations using cognitive services and pre-built AI models. So for example, you can say, hey, I want to take this column, I want to apply a translation on it. Synapse ML actually gives you Spark bindings and operators to work with a lot of different tools. So cognitive services is one big one, but you can also train ML models at scale. Let's say you have a huge data set and you can't use pandas and you can't use scikit-learn or some of these non-distributed algorithms, then you can use Synapse ML that offers a lot more than just Spark ML. Spark ML, to be honest, is not really that rich, but at a certain scale, you do need to do more. But when it comes to model predictions, we have our predict function on Synapse ML. It's actually part of the Synapse ML library, and it allows you to do distributed predictions. So let's say you have a ton of data that you're scoring on, or doing predictions on. If you can distribute it, it runs faster. So it basically leverages the power of Spark to do ML.
Nice. That's a very good way to put it. Leverage the power of Spark to do ML. Yes. There you have it. And with that said, we have the last question here. But Rishi is taking the lead with Michael S. still second, Nicola third, and it will take some wrong answers for the fourth and the fifth place here to take the win now. So I think Rishi and Michael is the one who's fighting most for this last question. Yeah. But let's see who takes the win with this last question of today's quiz. Question number 12. What is batch scoring? Is batch scoring running ML models on a large set of data points to make predictions? Is it visualizing data before running it through a machine learning model? Or is it training ML models on a large set of data points to make predictions? Or is it a process of saving an ML model?
Yeah, let's give people time to read through this. What is batch scoring? Focus on like the batch part. Yes. So batch scoring is about running ML models on a large set of rows, would probably have been good. So it's not just a single request response. It's basically like I have a batch of data. I want to run the predictions in batches, and large batches most likely, right? So, but it can also be 100 rows, basically any batch. So it's not an online real-time scoring. It's a batch scoring. So, and this is the scenario that we support right now in the initial public preview of Fabric. This is the scenario that we're focusing on when we're talking about doing batch scoring, serving the predictions with direct lake mode. But there are also different ways of scoring models. You may have an application and you need just to send one row, right, to get a millisecond response or less than a millisecond response. So that's a different type of scoring scenario.
So batch scoring is very simply put, if you want to score your whole data and you don't just want one value in some sort of operational flow. You have your whole data set, you want to score all of them based on an algorithm. Is it?
I see. Yeah, we actually have a question here in the chat. It seems like someone's like, isn't red and orange similar?
Yeah.
I mean, we were pretty evil with that one, because I think we were saying training ML models. So that was supposed to give you a hint that training is not same as scoring. But yeah, that's running it. I agree. It is a little fuzzy. So yeah, feedback taken on that one for sure. I hope that the audience is not too mad about some of these tricky questions.
Let's see. So we did the last question and we can announce the winner now. So for this episode 3, third place was Michael S. Second goes to Nexus. And first place, congratulations to Richie.
Congratulations.
I think it's Richie. Sorry if I'm wrong here, but it seems like your handle, Richie. So congrats to, if it's Richie, congrats, Richie. And was very nice to host you all. And thank you so much for joining, Nellie. This has been a pleasure and has been insightful, and I learned something, and I hope the audience did too. Are there some final note you want to say to people if they're curious or interested, or just something?
No, I mean, thank you so much for joining. Sorry about some of the questions. I really hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did. And I would say, don't be scared of trying out some of our machine learning and data science features. We've added getting started experiences in our docs. There's samples in the product. Inform your colleagues and in your organization if they're doing ML or data science, or if you just want to get started and learn, please do spread the word about it. We do listen to feedback a lot. And if you ever have feedback and such, reach out on Twitter, on LinkedIn, send a message, and we'll definitely follow up with you on your feedback.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining, Nellie, and also to all the others, all the rest of you. Thank you so much, and see you next time. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.